Ben Whittaker gets another round 1 KO. Baumgardner impresses once again, and Cristobal Lorente upsets the odds in Glasgow. All of that today in the review show. And we're kicking it off with Ben Whittaker. Another early stoppage, maybe earlier than I think we probably expected, but the result that we saw come in, where are we on it? On the fight, on him?
Yeah, I think it went pretty much as expected. I think it was probably a bit quicker than we even would have thought, but a really solid performance again. Like, since that link up with Gallagher, the punch power.
Andy Lee, not Joe Gallagher. There we go.
Yeah. Why did I think it was?
Because Fraser Clark the other week, wasn't it? Went with Joe Gallagher. So.
Oh yeah, of course.
And Liverpool and all that.
But yeah, since that link up, the punch power and just the spite behind his punches, and he's flipped so much from being the sort of cocky, showboating character into, I think, in terms of stylistic in a way. But not to the extent that we've seen in early in his career. He seems a lot more focused now on let's just get the job done, get the fighter up to there. But I think the main talking point coming off the back of it now is, and I think Eddie Hearn alluded to it as well, is we need to see that step up now. We talked about it last week, but with the fight that they've apparently got lined up, is it June, July in America now?
End of June, innit?
We should see that step up, a bit more competition, and there's no reason why we shouldn't see a relief being an Olympian and the decorated amateur background. He's looked solid enough now in his pro career. The last few fights he's looked like he's jumped massive levels, so it'd be good to see him start, climbing up those tests now and seeing how far Matchroom can push him and what level they can get him to.
I still think the cockiness is there though with Ben Whittaker, because when he started it, you can see that he was switched on. He was trying to land those shots and set up those shots to finish him. But when he found that shot that he was going to land, it's sort of the old Whittaker came in, and you're thinking, here he is. Here's the superstar that everyone tunes in to watch Ben Whittaker for, because I was saying when I was watching on Saturday night, he is like Marmite. Every time you watch him, you either like what he does or you hate it. And, some people sit on the fence, a little bit like me, because I'm thinking, just get the job done.
But the whole thing is either way you tune in, because you either want to see him win or you want to see him lose. So,
well, with him and Des and Troy, you're thinking, Jesus, like he's going to be an unstoppable force.
An iconic trio, more iconic than us.
Better Biev and Bivol probably looking at that. We don't want them to. But there we go. It was expected on Saturday night. It wasn't the best of shows by Matchroom, full stop, from top to bottom. But for Ben Whittaker to go in there, get the first round stoppage against a guy like they were building up, saying you took Lyndon Arthur quite a while, took him to deep waters and all that, to blow through him in a round is like fair play to him. And then over to America now, where I think he suits the American audience so well. I think Ben Whittaker, and it'll be interesting to see who he fights next, because there's some big names in that light heavyweight division, and especially in America, there's sort of up and coming stars that you could line him up against. But I think now for Matchroom, even if it is his debut over there, you got to get him in with someone that's gonna not test him, but take him past the 5th round, take him into those latter rounds. And because what was it now? Liam Cameron was first round, and now this guy on a Saturday night first.
As was Benjamin Gavazzi in the end of last year as well. Yeah,
first round wins in a row, isn't it?
It's like he needs rounds there. If he's going to do anything in boxing, he needs to get those learning, all that experience now. Because if he makes that step up and he takes on an opponent that can take Des and Troy, then Jesus, he could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I think it's a weird one, because like I said at the start, kind of the performance was maybe slightly more impressive than I expected, and even more spiteful than I expected. But with that being said, the performance vindicates our sort of take on it last week, which is that he needs to step up. That performance with another first round knockout shows more than ever that he needs to step up. But with that being said, I was impressed. I think we've seen a lot with former Olympians, decorated amateurs, where they don't step up in the pro ranks. They don't quite perform because they've learned everything they need to learn, and the mannerisms, the actions, everything's so deep rooted that they can't change. I think we talked about it with Fraser Clark, but under Andy Lee and with the way he's developed in the last year or so, he's added another string to his bow, which is that spitefulness. He's no longer sort of playing with his food. He's finishing his dinner.
You've got one style of Andy, haven't you?
Yeah.
And that's, you got to stop your opponent and you're going to punch hard. And that's what he's got in it now. And yeah, I just feel like on Saturday night, as much as I probably wanted to see a little bit more from him, at the same time, I was quite happy that it lasted just the round, because you're thinking he's the main event. Everyone's left now, because Molly McCann was technically the main event on Saturday night. Everyone's left. So get the job done early. Don't get cut. Get another fight over in the States and then potentially come back over to the UK in, I don't know, September, October time, and then fight someone that is at that top of the division in the British side of things, like an Anthony Yarde, Craig Richards, for example, and test yourself against those type of fighters, because that's it now with Ben Whittaker. He's done his learning. He did his learning in the amateur ranks, if you really want to make the argument. He's done a lot of learning in the pro ranks. He had those 2 fights against Liam Cameron, where we saw a lot of him, especially the one in Saudi Arabia, where, you know,
Bit of a wake-up call.
yeah, a bit of a humbling experience. And perhaps that's what was needed for Ben Whittaker. And he got away with one that night in Riyadh. And then to come back and you were there to watch him get that first round stoppage and then just continue, sign with Matchroom and all now. And I just feel like, yeah, get him in with someone that will give him the rounds, taking the distance or something like that. But that's the thing. Will they? That's the question now with Ben Whittaker. Will they find an opponent that can take him the distance? It's like the discussions with Moses Atama, isn't it? That they try to find opponents.
There's plenty of options up there, I think, in the light heavyweight division for Whittaker. I think obviously they'll get the America fight out of the way. They've Matchroom, I think, have got some options in terms of American fighters at light heavyweight, so I don't think they'll have much of a problem getting him a decent enough test out there. And then after that, I think, like I said, maybe the back end of the year, I'd really like to see if they could line up, get him on, if they do manage to get Fury and AJ at the end of the year, get him on the undercard of that and get him against another good, someone like Willie Hutchinson or, you know, a big fight like that interests people, especially domestically, is a good step up against someone, it might not be Willie Hutchinson, but just using that as an
it's a stacked division, isn't it? You've got Craig Richards, you've got Anthony Yarde, you've got Boatsi, Zach Parker.
There's loads of names that are sort of fringe world title level.
Louis Edmondson. There is so much talent in this country in the light heavyweight division. There's options.
And we put Ben Whittaker among the top 3 of them.
He's certainly among them, yeah. I think it's the fact that now they've combined what we knew he had, which was the skills and the slickness and the accuracy of punch, but they've then combined that accuracy with the technique and the setting up of the right shots. And if you can, and there was talks, I think, after the fight about whether it was back of the head, whether it was behind the ear, things like this. But we've seen an identical shot placement in pretty much all 3 of the stoppages. So I think it's a clear, they've used the fact that he can deliver shots accurately, quickly, and then you combine that with the right placement and the right technique and knockouts come. So I think he's done things that those guys we mentioned haven't done in a while. I can't remember the last big knockout for Boatsi, for Parker. Louis Edmondson's not a knockout artist.
That's the thing that they've been in.
But they have bigger wins, over the likes of Dan Aziz for Louis Edmondson, took Lap in the distance in a really tight fight. Zach Parker and Boatsi gave each other a brilliant war. Willie Hutchinson has had some impressive wins as well. I think those guys are maybe a step further. I'd go Anthony Yarde if it were me, because I think what we've seen with Yarde is he's looked less impressive against domestic tight opponents and then looked almost really impressive against the top guys, but still lost. So if you're looking at a fight which is your precursor, your warm-up to a world title fight, I think Anthony Yarde's the perfect one, because if you can't beat him, you're not landing a glove on a Dimitri Bivol. You're not laying a glove on Beterbiev. You're not getting close to Benavidez.
When Yarde fought the likes of Kovalev over in Russia, if he had that bit more experience when he fought Kovalev, if he didn't tire, that could have been one of the greatest wins ever for a British fighter over in Russia. And then obviously against Beterbiev, he hurt him quite early in that fight, if I remember correctly. So
You can't have an off day against Anthony Yarde. No. And I think that's what Whittaker needs. He needs the kind of person that can dig in, which I think we've seen Anthony Yarde can do, but also shows that he could be concentrated for a full 12 rounds, give a full 12-round performance.
Discipline.
Where he's not deciding, to taunt, to dance, to do that sort of stuff. Because, I mean, it's difficult because beyond all of this, I don't see him causing Benavidez, Bivol, or Beterbiev, the 3 Bs at the top, any huge amount of problems. So it's a difficult position. I think he's at a point where he's probably 2 fights away from a world title opportunity, but I don't know if that world title opportunity is a fight that he's going to be winning.
You play a smart waiting game then, or wait for Bivol and Beterbiev to call it a day. Benavidez, if he goes up and he's out of the way.
And you had Smith Morrell which was obviously meant to be on the card, was meant to be a WBA interim, I believe it was.
Does that still happen?
So I think they make that fight again.
I think they said they're looking to get it,
because Callum Smith is there on Saturday night, so
that would be a very interesting future fight, Callum Smith and Ben Whittaker.
Yeah, I think that's a really good fight.
Like, especially if we've both got them in like world title picture, or even if they've both holding a world title.
Yeah. Because again, Callum Smith, to an even greater scale, is someone that you cannot have an off night against. Josh Boazzi had a good night against Callum Smith and still lost that fight. So yeah, I think there's lots of interesting stuff for Ben. It's just hard to place just how good he is at the moment, because
no, that's it. You said it, he's like 2 fights away from a world title fight. It doesn't feel like that with Ben Whittaker, if you get what I mean. He's taken the right fights. Gavazi was the example of perfect timing. But it doesn't feel like now, if he wins his next fight, he's on the verge of, I still want to see more from him.
I think for me though, if he stepped through either Calico or Jesse Hart over in the States, obviously Jesse Hart just beat Calico, but both men are beatable. I think that would be a bit of a statement win and a real way to open yourself up to the American audience of, I'm that guy, and then come back to the UK and beat one of the top domestic guys. I think at that point, you'd say, but it is a big if. We're talking in the world where he beats both those guys. There's not a guarantee that those fights are fights he wins. We'll have to see just how good he is.
Do you think the Jesse Hart fight is the one they go for in America?
I think you'd be more likely to go Calico.
So, as well.
I think Calico is a bigger name and more beatable. So I think it's a win-win.
Rankings wise as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's a bigger name. People know him more because he was once sort of a more touted prospect, and also Jesse Hart beat him, so I think he is more beatable. So I think from that point of view, that's the fight you look for. I wouldn't be shocked though if it's a less impressive name than that. But I think if they've got to roll the dice
to some standard.
Calico is a matchroom fighter, if I'm not mistaken.
So both, aren't they?
I think maybe so.
Amateur
so at least at that, you'd be daft not to. I think the Calico fight, promotionally wise, makes huge amount of sense. On the undercards of, is it Boots Ennis?
Xander
Zayas, which is another brilliant fight that's gone under the wire. Yeah.
Or the Barclays Center, one or the other.
Let's move on to Molly McCann. And it feels a little bit like that fight because we've just done 10, 15 minutes before we got started. And obviously there was a bit of a concert to precursor it. It was an odd one, wasn't it? Because it felt like it should be the main event.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, first and foremost, on the card, but also it was a fighter that's not that long ago moved over from another sport against a fighter that went into the fight, I think 3-3 record, albeit Ashley put in that
record doesn't speak about.
No, exactly. But it wasn't a main event, but it was treated as one, wasn't it?
I think in hindsight, though, they probably should have put it as the main event, just because of where it was and the sort of impact that Molly McCann has had in the area of Liverpool. Like, she's adored in that area of the country. And yeah, it was a bit of a shame to see when Whitaker was making his ring walk, you could see a lot of the seats had emptied, the atmosphere wasn't great, and I know the fight didn't last long, so it probably didn't matter anyway. But yeah, I think in hindsight you probably could have put that as the main event. But
do you think that was maybe more of a DAZN decision? Do you think DAZN would be more inclined to want Ben Whittaker as the front name? But then for the viewers at home, DAZN are thinking if you put Molly McCann as the main event on the poster, people might not watch that card. Whereas in the stadium, it doesn't make sense, or in the arena.
At home, you would have seen, if Whitaker was on first, you probably would have seen a couple of people switch off after that. But in terms of
in the arena,
if it was anywhere else in the country, it makes sense. But the fact that it was in Liverpool, and the fact that Smith was meant to be the main event, another Liverpudlian.
Yeah.
I think to me it would have made sense to just put her on the main event and have that spectacle at the end of, the whole show and everything, because it almost felt like you had the main event and then Whitaker was the sort of
it's a bit like Queensberry show where they've got the Beyond the Bell going on and then there's fights going on in the back.
Whenever Flotel there,
that a little bit. And I think Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, if it was them that made the decision to keep Whitaker as that main event slot, they could have taken a note out of what Boxer do when they go to local, arenas. Tyler Denny, for example.
But that's why I'm saying I think it's a DAZN decision. I think if you're talking as a promoter, Eddie and Matchroom, if they're ignoring the TV,
but the
you would want you do it that way round.
Could have still had it as the main event. Everyone's done it in the past. When Adam Azim fought in Wolverhampton, if I remember rightly, he was the main event. But then obviously the cameras kept rolling afterwards and we had Tyler Denny.
But you're talking Sky Sports, not DAZN. Yeah. That's why I think it was a DAZN decision, that they want that as their, because if there's a lot of content on DAZN, and so if they're wanting you to click, people are more likely to click on Ben Whittaker than McCann outside of Liverpool. But either way, in terms of Molly McCann, what do we like the performance? I
thought it was one of her better performances.
It showed a
level,
a type of performance that we haven't seen. I think
she looked a lot cleaner in her work because she had someone coming on to her.
She's been the Ashley Johnson in a number of her last fights, the chasing the fight, pushing the pace, roughing up the opponent, and has looked good doing so. But that was she was the more technically skilled boxer, and she showed that, I think.
And I do think that they plan for her to main event a show in the future, because I think they'll try and get a British title shot for her in Liverpool and have it as her sort of roll of the dice to try and win a title in boxing.
Yeah, I think that makes a huge amount of sense. I mean, they obviously talked on the broadcast that they're looking to get her in Croke Park in the summer. And do you know what? I'll give you some credit, Harry. You're not the only person I've seen make the mistake thinking that...
I was sat there thinking, surely not. And then I put the message in the chat and got quickly shut down and quickly put back in my place saying, no, Harry, calm down.
Yeah, so she's not fighting Katie Taylor in Croke Park, but you'd imagine she'll get one more fight in Croke Park, and then
I couldn't believe it, though.
Is it Tycee Gallagher or someone like that they look...
Yeah,
Tycee Gallagher's got... I think she's coming off the back of an injury. I think she's just coming back into the sport now.
GBM fighter as well, ain't she?
Yeah.
I know the one, yeah.
But, a good fighter at domestic level. I think that would be a really, interesting test. I'm trying to think of the other names you've got on that division. But
Stevie,
obviously fighting TMA Ayton in a week or two. So
that'd be the feature fight right there.
Each other.
Who?
Tia leaving,
Tia on the Wolverhampton undercard, and Tia and Molly McCann have done a huge amount of sparring in camps together, so they won't fight each other. Obviously under the Matchroom banner.
I think the full credit as well to Ashley Johnson as well, because that 3-4 record now, it doesn't resemble the sort of career she's had as a pro. Because let's not forget, she took up boxing just a matter of years ago. Probably when this podcast started, she was picking up the gloves or something like that, or just a couple months earlier. So for her to go in there and, not being funny, she was in the ring for a good 15 minutes before the fight, and she's in the cauldron of, she was properly the away fighter that night, and for her to keep coming, even though she was getting beaten and, Molly McCann was easily winning the fight in the end, to keep coming forward, keep pressuring and getting out aside of Molly McCann that we haven't seen in all of her fights was brilliant. And she'll come again. She'll have better fights from that now, and she'll get the phone call, and that's brilliant to see for a Welsh fighter. But yeah, when Molly McCann was on the microphone afterwards, I don't know if it was because it was Saturday night and I was a little bit tired. All I heard was Katie Taylor, Croke Park, and when I heard that, I was like, surely not. And then I put the message in the group chat, and then Sam over here quickly brought me back down and said, no, calm down.
With that fight with Ash Johnson and Molly McCann, I did think it felt like the 2-minute rounds were Ashley's downfall. I think so many times the last sort of 15, 30 seconds, she was just starting to get a grip, and then it was the end of the round. And I think in times where you have that extra minute, you can be that driving force. Yeah. Whereas those 2-minute rounds, and we saw it with, I think, Alycia Baumgardner as well in her fight, sometimes the 2 minutes doesn't give a fighter quite enough time to wear them down in each round, and then the more technical fighter can recover a little bit and go again. So, I think whether or not they should be fighting 3-minute rounds it's not a decision for me to comment on. But
segue by your mind,
I suppose the only other thing is Leo Atang fought again. We said we wanted him to have rounds. He got rounds, but unfortunately in doing so probably looks the least impressive of his career so far.
But I watched it back and I was thinking to myself, that's probably the perfect fight for him to have at this stage in his career, where he's had a fight, he's got the rounds, didn't look good in it, and can take a lot from it. Those are the fights you want for prospects. You want them not to look good in fights so they can learn and develop. And I think that's what Leo Atang had on Saturday night. And listen, his opponent, he was tough. You knew as soon as that first round ended, you knew that it was either going to be, he'll be out of there in the second round, or it's going to be a long night. And it was looking like it was going to be a long night. And yeah, it was good to see that Leo Atang went the distance, but it also was a sort of fight where you look at him and go, right, let's hold back a little bit more on this kid.
Yeah,
I think he's still got a lot of time to develop and a lot of room to develop.
You were saying to give him a test last.
It's true, yeah. No, I think the problem is like Harry sort of saying, he went the rounds, which is what you want, but unfortunately he didn't look so impressive in doing so.
That's the sort of test that you need.
Is there a bit of a mix then though as well, of because it's been so comfortable for him so far, once you do see him have a bit of a struggle, you don't want to go too much, he looked terrible. It was just... But not every fight you have in your career, you're going to look amazing. Like some...
I think last week when we said about him needing a test, though, we were reading that off a TBA, weren't we? Which is quite funny.
True, yeah.
And we didn't expect for him on such short notice to have an opponent like that. So I just think...
I think for me, though, you say about the opponent, I think when I was watching it, I think that we know the skills there. He's obviously only 19 years of age, so he'll fill out, the power will come through even more, but he's got the power already. I think he was just slightly smothering his work. He was getting in a little bit too close. I think it goes back to what Ben said. When you have had knockout, first round, third round, first round, he did just under 50% of his career rounds in that one fight. And I think he was rushing in a little bit. He was getting a little bit too close and smothering his work. And that's they'll have a look back at that and or they'll, I don't know what I'm talking about, and they'll do something else. But whatever the issue was, they will correct and continue to work. And 19 years of age, he's got so much time on his side.
You need fights like
it'll be
last week.
It'll probably be 2.5 years before you're looking at the first kind of titles of his career.
He's definitely shut down everyone talking about future fights to Moses Atang at the moment, which I think is good because I'm not being funny. Commentary.
Well, he's 3 years younger.
Commentary this weekend as well was a little bit, nah.
Yeah, I think
it's a little bit of a shame. But
I think for me, the DAZN commentary over the course of the last 6 months or so has just kind of crept into a little bit of a habit of getting stuck in one narrative on fights. And we've seen it with, sometimes you're watching the fight and you're saying, like, what's being said in my ears doesn't match what my eyes are telling me. My eyes are telling me this is a close 50-50, but my ears are telling me that, the home fighter is 13 rounds up and we're only 2 rounds in.
Frampton is the prime example of that.
It's slightly frustrating. And I don't know what, people can say all sorts, whether it's something that, it's bias or it's just a sort of a habit that's been, grown over that period. But it's slightly difficult to watch at times.
It is.
But either way, I think, it was a disappointing event because the main event was cancelled. But equally, if Matchroom had cancelled this event because the main event had been cancelled, then they'd have got far more stick than they're getting for...
Think how busy another Saturday night would have been with like an added...
I just think as well, like Eddie sort of alluded to, I think sometimes, by pulling a fight or pulling a card, you're costing those fighters money.
Do you think...
You're costing those fighters time and they're not getting the reward for it. So sometimes you've got to, as a business, bite the bullet and respect them for doing so.
If Ben Whittaker, though, wasn't the co-main event, are they pulling that card and saying, right, we'll save it for when Calipers back fit.
Maybe, but I think
So.
I think the fact that Molly McCann felt like the main event, it warranted it. And Joe McGrail put in a really good performance as well. It was annoying that one it finished early, didn't it, with a body shot, and it was quite a good fight before that point. But they had the talent on the card. There was lots of interest. To jump over to the States, to Alycia Baumgardner versus Bo Mi Re Shin, a favourite of this.
I am actually caught up on this fight yet.
To be honest, if you've watched Caroline Dubois versus Bo Mi Re Shin, you've watched Alycia Baumgardner. It was
a minute onto it. Yeah,
it was pretty impressive. I think she looked great. Baumgardner, the combinations, the power. I think she probably hurt Shin maybe slightly more than Caroline Dubois did, but then I think Shin probably hurt Baumgardner slightly more than she did
in the latter round.
Dubois, particularly, like you say, in the latter rounds. It was a great fight to watch. It was a really entertaining
watch. The thing that
watch.
impresses me about Baumgardner is the way she starts fights.
Yeah.
There's nothing slow about the way she starts fight, and especially with it being 10 3-minute rounds as well. You're thinking you've got an extra minute to work with, so you can take your time a little bit more, but it didn't seem like that. I think both of them were fighting like they were 2-minute rounds throughout. And listen, it was a cracking fight to watch. 30 minutes of back and forth action, and Shin's chin, I'm a poet there, phenomenal. Unbelievable that she didn't go down in that fight, and she just kept coming forward and wasn't getting like put down by sort of the dominance by Baumgardner. And I was thinking watching it, the women's division at the moment is quite hard to rank, probably the top 5.
Yeah.
And you're thinking there's so many names that you can put in that top 5 that list, it doesn't replicate how good women's boxing is at the moment, because you've probably got Katie Taylor number 1. Amanda Serrano
should have Katie Taylor number 1. I'm going to put that there.
Some people have Carissa Shields up there as well. Where does Alycia Baumgardner, Maya, Lauren Price, Ali Scottney, where do you put all of these female names?
Yeah.
That top 5 then becomes a top 7. There's so much depth and quality in women's boxing, and especially now with them having 10 3-minute rounds, I think it's just going to get more and more, eyeballs on it and get people more excited. And yeah, like I said, it didn't feel like both of them were fighting 3 minutes. They both knew that they were fighting 3 minutes, but they just stuck to what they knew from the 2 minutes and put on a fight that was back and forth and was very enjoyable. Apart from when you're catching up on Sky Sports YouTube, I haven't employed an ad blocker, and I've got this Bet365 guy every single round telling me to put a bet on, and it was horrid. So,
other betting providers are available, all of that stuff.
But anyway, Stoke City and all that.
Yeah, no, I think for me, Bo Mi Re Shin is someone that has become a favourite on this channel. I think after that performance, she did exactly the same thing again, and you can see why she would cause anyone other than the very top of her division a huge amount of problems. And I think having watched that fight, having watched the fight versus Caroline Dubois, it just proves even more that I want to see Caroline Dubois versus Baumgardner. It's the perfect fight.
That's next.
Style-wise, ability-wise, power-wise, there is so little to separate them from what we've seen that the only way to do so is to get in the ring with each other. And I think I can understand why there's maybe a hesitation in terms of you don't want to use up that good fight straight away.
But then you also run the risk of leaving it too late.
Exactly. So I think that fight will happen. They're both under the MVP banner, so it would be...
makes it easier, don't it?
Yeah, it would be silly for it not to happen.
And both are coming off.
But I think it happens probably later than we want, maybe early next year. You look at that.
It's definitely the fight that you want to see from both of them. But in terms of Baumgardner, do you think the one issue with her is that we've got our asterisks next to her name in terms of...
Yeah, it does frustrate. It does frustrate. And I think any fighter that has that asterisk next to their name, it always hangs over them in some way in terms of perception of them, whether it's right or wrong, or whether it's justifiable or not, accident or not, whatever the reasons are, it will always hang over them. But I think, I can put it aside. I can park it to watch the Dubois fight. And I think
build up that would be brilliant.
They're both.
I really don't know who would win it. I think that's what makes it a great fight is I really don't know who would win it. And when you're looking at the female division, you alluded to it there. You've got huge fights being made, just left, right, and centre. What, Chantel Cameron, Michaela Myers been agreed by all accounts?
Phenomenal.
Clarissa Shields, Lauren Price been agreed by all accounts. If you can get Baumgartner versus Caroline Dubois, you get Katie Taylor versus whoever that be, Holly Holm, Sandy Ryan, whoever they get in there.
Yeah, if you try and move up so many weight divisions.
Yeah. That's enough fights to keep us, occupied for 2 years or so.
Dominated by women's boxing if they can get all those fights going.
And then they were probably the fight of the year. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano was the fight of the year. In basically any year, any one of those 3 fights happened. So, it's a strong spot.
You just mentioned, though, and Katie Taylor, Croke Park, that's some year for women's boxing.
It's massive. It's massive. And we'll say it quietly, but unfortunately, Jake Paul and MVP have a huge amount, to play in that.
Full credit.
You've got to give credit to what they've done. And to have it on Sky Sports in the UK again is great.
Yeah, remind me to record it, not watch it back on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. Good shout. And then just as we wrap up on that one, before we move on to Nathaniel Collins' fight against Cristobal Lorente, obviously Shadaza Green collapsed in the ring with a brain bleed. As far as social media and her own personal statements suggest, she seems to be making a full recovery, which is always great to see. But obviously to Shadaza and anyone involved, hopefully she does make a full recovery. And I think... it's scary. I was speaking to someone recently about that fight, and Lanny Daniels, it was a really impressive win, and she's had an unbelievable story and journey, a real redemption. But it's always painful when you see a fighter go through a life-threatening injury like that in the ring. So I hope Shadaze is okay, I hope everyone's all right, and glad that the event and everyone involved could go on and deliver as intended. Nathaniel Collins, Cristobal Lorente. It was a maybe not the fight we expected. Probably slightly more weighted towards Lorente than perhaps the first fight and the build-up would suggest.
Yeah, it was a good early start, I thought, from Collins. It was back and forth, but it was the 6th round again. I think it was the sort
Switch.
of the game changer again, similar to the first fight. And I don't know whether he just didn't think Lorente would be as good as he was again. Didn't expect that amount of action and was maybe preparing himself for an easier night, or whether it was just an off night for him. But yeah, you could sense as the rounds were going by, the frustration was building, certainly in that corner. And I think with about 2 or 3 rounds to go, Lorente's corner was like, we got this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we've won this fight.
I think Nathaniel Collins, if you'd put a highlights reel together of the fight, he probably did the best work and landed the best, the cleanest and the most sort of eye-catching shots. And technically, I think his work was probably the best, but it was too few and far between. They always say hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard enough, and I think that fight is the evidence of that. Lorente was dogged and won that fight through his engine more than anything else.
I think Collins had the sort of best moment of the fight from him as well, just before Lorente sort of went up a gear again. It was just almost sort of in that 6th round, Collins looked like this maybe could be the moment where he starts to take control, and then Lorente just went, right, you need to go up again and just keep going. So yeah, it was a really good performance from him. Shame for Collins, obviously. It was a big night for him in front of the home crowd as well, so it was a real shame. But yeah, it was definitely the deserved winner in the end. And when I seen the split decision call, I was thinking for a second, is it gonna be one of those nights for...
You understand why I said horror card?
I did, yeah. I hadn't watched it when you mentioned that. I couldn't believe it when I watched the fight, and then that first card came through.
116, 111.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
Even Victor Lachlan, who's Scottish, had it for... I know that they can't be biased.
Yeah, it was the European...
It was the Italian judge.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It goes back to commentary, but it also goes back to judges. What are they watching?
Yeah, it's bizarre.
We won't get into that. But no, listen, Lorente, fair play to him. Cracking performance on away turf. And at least this time, they had a winner. And it was a bit more... It was a bit strange because Lorente talked about it, the first round of the rematch being the 13th round as it is. But it looked like for him, like Ben touched upon, as the rounds were going on, so he was growing into the fight. And so he did it slowly, yes, but once he got in front, it was like, yeah, I'm not handing this over now. You got to stop me now. And I just felt like you can't have an off night when you're fighting in a eliminator like Collins was, and you could tell in his corner the frustrations.
Yeah, he didn't look his best, did he?
Yeah, something perhaps went wrong in training. Who knows? Something may come out, but he's not blown an opportunity. But for Lorente now, he's off to the States and he's fighting in a mega fight against Bruce Carrington now, and it's like he's gone from drawing with Collins for, let's be honest, for people that were probably watching him for the first time. That was probably the first time we caught eyes on him, was when he fought Collins in that draw the last time out in Glasgow. And now he's on the verge of potentially claiming a world title and, you know, joining the likes of Sandor Martin in Spain has been, well, you know, it's brilliant for Spanish boxing. And if anyone knows me, I do like a bit of Spanish boxers, and Sandor Martin's one of my favorites. So, you know, for him to go up, do the same thing as him, hopefully, then phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, style-wise, I think, you know, you look at it and you think there's not many fighters below the top guys in the division that would be looking at that and going, yeah, Joe, I'll take a fight against Lorente. I think, you know, if it's not that Bruce Carrington fight, which obviously final eliminator it should be, I think if you're looking in for Nick Ball as a comeback fight, I think
it's a hard night for Nick.
It would be a hard night, but I think if you could get yourself into the position for a WBC title, then I think you do take that opportunity. But beyond Nick Ball, I can't see many fighters domestically who haven't already got their hands on a title in the States taking that fight.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one. Do you reckon we could see Nick Ball and Collins now? The fact they're both off a loss.
I don't think Queensberry do it, because I think both have a comeback in them. I think both have one more. Well, Nick Ball probably more so, but Collins I think certainly has probably one more kind of reset, build yourself back up, go again. So I think you're cashing in on that, aren't you? Then, which I can't see them doing, but it'd be a good fight. I mean, Liam Davies is around that division. Do they look Liam Davies, Nathaniel Collins, perhaps? You know, there's fights to be made.
Domestic fight for him, maybe.
But I think for me, Nick Ball, if I was Nick Ball's team, I'd be trying to, you know, send in an offer that financially they might not say no to, and see if you can get your hands on that WBC position. But we'll have to wait and see.
He'd do a better job than what Collins would have done.
Yeah. He suits a scrappy fight more.
Spiteful fight.
Yeah, he doesn't mind it getting a bit messy, getting a bit dirty, and I think in many ways, I mean, there's a big height difference, but for Nick Ball, who isn't there on against, it's not quite Ray Vargas, so that's something he's used to now. I think he could do a good job in that fight. I think he probably would go into it the favourite, you'd have to say, as a former champ. Considering the people he's beat, Ray Ford, I think he beat Ray Vargas. You know, he's only really had one off night.
Yeah, and that came in Liverpool though, and like a bit like Collins in front of his home crowd. It's Sam Gilly on the undercard, you know.
Yeah, it was a good win.
A bit of like a redemption sort of fight for him.
Best performances of his career, I think.
Probably is his best performance of his career, particularly after losing at his beloved Tottenham Hotspur. So cracking Royston Barney Smith as well.
Yeah, you've got to touch on Royston Barney Smith for the British title. Obviously, for us personally, but as people who know Conor very well, it was a frustrating nice one. But
no credit to him, mind. 3 body shots and kept coming up.
I don't know how we got.
I don't know if you heard the DAZN commentary. Adam Smith going, "There's no chance he gets up from this," and then half a second later, Conor's on his feet. Fair play to him. He went out on his shield big time. But yeah, Royston Barney Smith is showing now. I think we hadn't seen it. There'd been so many fights at such a young age of a similar level as they were kind of building them up. It's so hard to know what level they're at. Obviously working with Ben Davison at the young age he is, and a performance like that is worthy of a British title first and foremost, but also
Commonwealth as well.
It's a big hello, a big pay attention to me, to the boxing world, which I think is what he needs.
And he's still so young as well. Like,
I was he 20?
Was he 15-0 after that now?
I think he's 21, 22, I think.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember.
I think you could probably use the next few fights to just win that. I think they alluded to it on the weekend, but win that British title outright, do a couple of defences against.
It's the smartest way of doing it. Yeah.
Do you think they try and get him back out on the St Mary's show they've got with Ryan Garner?
You can't have a St Mary's show.
Because that fight in terms of impact on him is little to none. So he can take a little time off, get back into camp, get on for that Ryan Garner stadium fight with Louis Edmondson, another Southampton boy, or based out of that neck of the woods. Nice. It would be a really good fight for him, but also a good first defense of that British title against for your home crowd, like you say.
Spallotti, someone like that.
Oh, I see. I think that's
I
think that might be a jump. I don't know. I suppose you're the British champ, you've got to take Rhys Spallotti, but
I think that's a jump.
Rhys Spallotti, I think, is a good step.
Yeah.
No, Spallotti's last 2 fights against Ryan Garner lost and Josh Padley lost.
Yeah, I suppose you have to. Yeah, if you're going to be a great fighter, you have to be able to beat someone like Rhys Spallotti.
Josh Padley's got to get through him for a world title.
Yeah, there we go. That'll be the one. But really impressive. And the other fight on this one was Dylan Arbuckle, Nico Lavers. I don't know if you watched that one. Really frustrating. It ended how it did with a swollen eye because it was an absolute shootout in the time it was going. Both men, I think, were causing each other a lot of problems, and it felt like something had to give at some point. And unfortunately, it was an eye injury that gave rather than either opponent. But it was shaping up to be a really tasty fight.
Yeah. Oh, what could have been? Is it when you watch a fight and there's sort of like you say going back, you just go right. Happy days. You're going to watch this now for the next however long it lasts and just enjoy it. And then obviously you get stopped. It's a bit disappointing,
especially another British title fight like that. They are, like we say, more often than not. They are either an early stoppage or they deliver 12 rounds, and that's not a surefire rule, but it's pretty accurate. So never mind.
To be honest, we were looking at it last week previewing it. I wasn't as excited because of Smith Morrell being cancelled, but it was still a decent weekend of boxing, and Alycia Baumgardner with a cracking performance. Nathaniel Collins will bounce back, but Lorente getting the upset win and a deserved win. Sam Gilly, perhaps maybe the win of the weekend.
Possibly, in
terms of context of it.
Joe McGrail looking good. Joe McGrail versus Arbuckle could be a fight for the British for the super bantamweight. Maybe you get made, but I think we always say this, but a good weekend of boxing is one that you come out of and you go, I want to see this fight now. I want to see this fight now. I want to see this fight now, and we've just done that. We've just said what we want for Whitaker, what we want for Molly McCann, what we want for Baumgardner, what we want for Barney Smith.
You said that we could have done this podcast in 5 minutes, so.
There we go.
Maybe that's what we should do.
Yeah, but then we don't get the watch hours. You know what I mean? It was a good weekend of boxing. We've got a bit of a quiet one coming up this weekend, but I think that's a much wanted one because the weekend after that, early May bank holiday weekend, is carnage for boxing. You got Naoya Nakatani, which is still going under the radar. That is arguably one of the best fights in boxing, and we
clocked it last week.
A week and a half out for it. You've got Zurdo Benavidez, which I remember Zurdo Benavidez when it was announced. It was good. I like that.
Did anyone get that?
I did. Yeah. It was good. Zurdo Benavidez, when it was announced, felt like, oh, that's soon, and it's already on us. Some really great fights, and top tier have got a great card on that weekend as well. So
Sunday,
Lots to get our teeth sunk into for that one. If you guys look forward to the sound of any of that, all of that, some of that, then subscribe on YouTube here or follow us on Spotify if you haven't already, if you're listening on the audio version. Or if you're on YouTube and you prefer not to see our faces, which we wouldn't blame you for, click on Spotify. Or if you're on Spotify and you think, what do these guys look like? Don't bother going on YouTube. You will be disappointed. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all later in the week.
Punches chance. Punches Chance Podcast.